All right, guys, let's talk about our periods. Yes, the time of the month when your pants look like a crime scene, or maybe they don't. Maybe you don't have your period, maybe your periods are irregular. Whatever your relationship status is with your period, this video is going to help. Also, let's just quick take a note. Theo never sits here. Let me get a better angle for you guys. Theo never sits here, literally only when I film. I mean, it's like he knows it's his time to shine, that guy. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of research. If you guys follow my Instagram stories, you know this, around women's health and really fertility. And you guys have been so interested in learning about what I've learned. So that's what we're doing today. 2 books have recently been hugely impactful for me. So the first one is No Period, Now What? And again, helpful even if you do have your period and you just kind of want to really allow your body to function optimally, and also taking charge of your fertility. So this was actually a recommendation from you guys, so thank you for that. Learned a ton. I read it when I was just in the backyard at our hammock relaxing, and my husband's just like, honey, that is a thick book. And I'm just like sitting here in my bathing suit in the hammock reading like a textbook, but I think it's fascinating. So right now I want to give you just kind of a summary of some of the things that I've learned in these 2 books and really kind of spell out like an easy, digestible menstrual cycle diet plan, essentially. How to get a period back, how to make your periods more regular, and how to just kind of, like I said, allow your body to function optimally. And obviously this video is not meant to be taken as your individualized advice. I'd highly recommend meeting with a registered dietitian and talking with your doctor for that. This is simply just me sharing some of the information that I've learned from these 2 books for you. Okay, so let's first talk about what some of the downsides of not having a healthy menstrual cycle is. So it can lead to bone density loss, it can lead to impaired digestion, impaired body temp regulation, weakening of our hair and our nails, and also the possibility of increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases and also heart disease due to low estrogen. Okay, so obviously it's pretty important to have a regular menstrual cycle, right? Okay, so let's start with this book, No Period, Now What? Because this is the one that I read first. So one really interesting piece of information from this book is that 98% of women who followed this recovery plan, as they call it, were able to get a healthy menstrual cycle back. And these are women of all shapes, sizes, and colors. This is not just for those who are underweight. They actually found that starting weight did not impact the outcomes. You can be underfueling your body, which is something that they talk a lot about in this book, at any size. And they do talk some numbers in this book. I don't know, they have like a calorie range that they want you to shoot for. So we will be talking about that. So just in case you might be triggered by that, I just want to kind of put that out there. Okay, so one other quick note that I want to make sure that we get to before we dive into this menstrual cycle diet plan for you is that I'll be honest with you guys, I was a little almost embarrassed at how I felt like little I knew my body. And one of the things that I learned, and again, this is almost like embarrassing to admit, but I didn't know the way that hormonal birth control worked. And I had been on and off it for a while. If you're saying to yourself right now, well, I have a regular period and you're on hormonal birth control, that does not necessarily mean that you're having a healthy menstrual cycle. Because essentially what that hormonal birth control is doing is it's giving you a withdrawal bleed. So you're not going through the full cycle, the full menstrual cycle when you're going through this process. The reason that you bleed is because you're on those inactive pills and it creates this withdrawal bleed. So you have this drop in estrogen, which is going to create that bleed, but it's not necessarily the same as having a healthy regular menstrual cycle. And that's not saying that if you're on the pill, you're not having a healthy menstrual cycle. It's just saying that you could be masking any issues with your menstrual cycle. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if I need to clarify that anymore. But like I said, I personally didn't fully know that when I was on hormonal birth control. So I just think it's a really important thing to put out there. And in my next video, I'll be going in depth of the different phases of the menstrual cycle, which again, I think is fascinating. So be sure that you're subscribed to the channel to get updates on that, because that is one you're not going to want to miss. We're also going to talk about what things to eat when you're actually on your period. So today we're doing kind of the before work. Okay, how do we get our healthy menstrual cycle? And then next week, we're going to do a little more of a deep dive into, okay, I've got it, now what? That would be a good book. I got it, now what? Make a follow-up. So the first tip that I have for you, really the first piece of this healthy menstrual cycle diet plan here, is to make sure that you're eating enough. And they, again, hit this home in this book, and really in the Taking Charge of Your Fertility book too. We have to be eating enough. You have to not only be eating enough for your body right now, but also for it to make up for any damage that dieting has done in the past. So in essence, your body might need extra energy at this time because you are fixing some of the damage that those diets have done. You're sort of in this catch-up phase. And this is especially true if you are not having your period right now. You're missing period, but not pregnant. You're not getting period. So the No Period Now What book says to shoot for a minimum of 2,500 calories a day. Now they go into more depth of how they kind of got to this number in the book, but that is what they say is the minimum that you should be eating in order to kind of give your body this energy that it needs back, and then also allow it to not only make up for the damage that was done, but give it more energy so that it can start giving you a healthy menstrual cycle. And again, I want to reiterate that this is at any size. This is not just for those who are underweight and they need to gain some weight in order to get a healthy menstrual cycle. This is for anyone at any size, because there is likely a degree of quote unquote fixing that needs to be done on the inside, and that requires extra energy. I know that seems really scary, like that seems like a lot of food. It's totally not, but diet culture, and especially when we have that like MyFitnessPal 1,200 calories in our head, we're like, holy mother of goodness, that's like double, that's over double, right? I mean, it's terrifying, but I can tell you that it's needed. And when I was going through this phase, I ate a lot more than that, to be honest. This will likely cause some weight gain. I mean, I feel like anytime we change anything in our diets, it takes our body some time to adjust. There might be some actual weight gain there. There might be some bloating there, some water weight. There's so many different reasons, but I would almost say go into it expecting some change. Not almost, I would. I have an entire video on how to handle weight gain that I can link to up there for you. It's got all of my tips that really helped me when I was going through this process. I gained 30 pounds during the process. So I talk a little bit more about that there, and kind of how that 30 pounds happened, and then kind of where I'm at now. And right now, well, you might be saying, well, I can't gain weight. I don't need to gain weight. If we're not having a regular period, we're not having a healthy menstrual cycle, that's a signal that something's wrong. That's a lot of times a signal that our body is not getting enough of what it needs. And a lot of times that is nutrition. That's fuel, be it a variety of types of food, overall amounts of food. That's likely the case. And one thing that I really do love about this book is that it goes kind of in depth on some of the labs that you want your doctor to test if you are not having a regular cycle or you're having irregular cycles. Some of the things that they say to test are LH, FSH, prolactin, and TSH. So those are different lab markers of a healthy menstrual cycle. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because it explains more in the book. Let me know in the comments if you want me to kind of go more into depth about that. And then, like I said, we're going to be going into more depth in the next video on kind of the hormones. Okay, so now let's kind of talk a little bit about what to eat in order to follow this kind of healthy menstrual cycle diet plan. So you may be thinking that you want to come at this at a clean eating angle, and let's chat about that. When you're eating mostly clean foods, so mostly those whole foods, they're very kind of voluminous, right? But some of those more, I think, unclean foods, is totally such a bogus phrase, but those are going to be more of those calorie dense foods. And if you're trying to meet that intake mark with only those clean foods, it's going to be tough because you're going to be putting a lot of volume in your stomach. That's going to be uncomfortable. And you're also likely going to be putting a lot of kind of like fiber in your gut, and that might back you up. So yes, you can, add things like nut butters and avocado and more, throw more fruits and veggies in your smoothie. That's totally fine. But what I'm saying is don't be afraid of going to McDonald's and getting McFlurry or whatever it might be. That's a very wise decision, to be honest, because it's going to give you a lot of that nutrition, a lot of that energy in a smaller amount. Does that make sense? So do not come at this from I have to do it in a totally clean eating way, because that could be very, very harmful in terms of like uncomfortable on your gut. We just got the mail. Oh, she's so fine, buddy. She's so fine. You just go back to sleep. Now, it is important that you are eating a wide variety of foods at this point. So yes, incorporate lots of different fruits and veggies too, but again, don't be afraid of those. Honey, she is gone. It's totally fine. Protective. He probably thinks she's gonna like come inside and steal like all the peanut butter. Yeah, not gonna happen. Nutrition can play a role in your food choices, but it should not be the sole decision maker of your food choices. That needs to take a back burner a lot of times, just kind of like when we work towards intuitive eating and living a life of no food rules. Sometimes we have to take a step back from that lens of just nutrition. So a couple things that you can do for this gentle nutrition piece. Again, nutrition can be a part of your decision, but it can't be the decision maker. One thing you can do is incorporate some more whole grains into your diet. This can help with inflammation and hormone levels. Things like oats and whole grain breads are a great idea. You can work on more incorporation of vegetable protein sources. So things like tofu and beans, they're going to have higher levels of antioxidants, which can help kind of balance our hormones and protect our eggs from some damage that could be done to them. And they also are going to provide you with less saturated fats. Now, kind of going on that fat piece, you can aim to incorporate some more monounsaturated fats. So this is things like olive oil and avocado versus the coconut oil and the palm oil types of things that we think about that have more of those saturated fats. So the unsaturated fats, quick little lesson here, they have more of the, when we think of those protective health benefits, we think of those unsaturated fats. So monounsaturated fats are a really great example of that. Like I said, avocado, olive oil. You can work to incorporate more vegetable iron sources into your diet. Chickpeas and cooked spinach are a really great option. And again, these are going to have higher levels of antioxidants, and those are going to help with hormone balance and protect that egg from some possible damage. And when I'm talking about egg, I'm talking about the eggs we have in us that we produce. I'm not talking about the eggs we eat. And full fat dairy is another one that you can work to incorporate that can help. There was actually a study that found that full fat dairy products were actually associated with a less risk of ovulatory infertility than low fat and fat free dairy products. And if you guys know me, you know I love to put my whole milk in my smoothies every morning. Helps to keep me nice and full and taste delicious. And it's helping my menstrual cycle. Okay, the second piece that they hit on, the second tip that I have for you for this menstrual cycle diet plan is all about exercise. So this book, No Period Now What, really encourages you to stop exercising. And I actually stopped exercising myself when I was working towards recovery from disordered eating. And guys, it was hugely impactful. It's hard as crap, but it's so helpful because when you think about it, we just talked about how we need to increase the amount of energy that our body has. If we are exercising, we're creating a bigger deficit, and it's going to make it harder and harder for us to be in that place of pretty much we're kind of playing catch up. Your body's in need of rest if it needs to repair itself. That does not mean you can't come back to exercise. I exercise now. I love my workout routine, but it's in much more of a healthy place. I'm not obsessed with exercise. I allowed my body to heal so it can actually function more optimally when I do exercise. Now, they do say that you can do some light walking, stretching. They suggest nothing over 100 beats per minute. I don't monitor my heart rate, but let's be real. We know when we're doing something that's like exercise, like a power walk versus like a light stroll. You know the difference. And especially they say to avoid those high intensity exercises because that can also increase our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which can actually suppress our hypothalamus, a little part in our brain, that can actually result in no or irregular cycles. So in essence, even if you're saying, well, I exercise, I run to reduce my stress, it's really important to find other coping mechanisms because it's kind of like, okay, well, yes, it's stress relief, but it's increasing our cortisol levels, which is going to increase our internal stress. It's just kind of like you're chasing your tail. And another tip is for this, I recommend it, they talk about it in the book, just take it one day at a time. Don't tell yourself I'm not going to exercise for months because that can trigger anxiety, right? I would recommend just taking it one day at a time. Okay, today I'm gonna focus on giving my body rest, then handle tomorrow when it comes, okay? That can just be a much more digestible way to kind of allow yourself to have that break from exercise. The next tip is stress management. So we just kind of talked about stress and cortisol and how that can suppress our menstrual cycle and cause them to be irregular. Well, the same thing is actual stress. There's multiple cases in this book who women just started to implement stress reducing activities and self-care and just taking a step back and giving ourselves a freaking break, and they got their period back. So really evaluate the stress in your life and say, how can I cope with this? How can I eliminate it? That is going to be huge. You can do some deep breathing, you can do meditation, journaling, tapping. I've mentioned tapping before. I use the Tapping Solution app. That's something that you can do. It's been called called like meditation for doers because I have a really hard time just sitting still. All those things are some things that you can do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do bubble baths, okay? But manage the stress. Okay, now let's get into the supplement piece of things. So they do go into kind of some detail about different supplements that you can take that can help you with this menstrual cycle diet plan. Now I want to be clear that you cannot out supplement all of the other pieces that we've talked about. You can't say, okay, well, I'm going to take these supplements and continue my exercise and not give my body more energy, not handle my stress. Not gonna work. I'm not gonna give specific doses because everyone is totally different, and I'd recommend talking to a doctor or dietitian to really go over your unique needs. What other medications are you on? What other health, problems might you have? So we'll just kind of do a general overview of these, and I'll link to the research below if you want to do some more digging. Okay, so the first one that you could take is acetyl-L-carnitine. In several studies, this has been shown to improve low LH. Remember, that's one of the things that you want your doctor to test for, and that's low in those with hypothalamic amenorrhea, and causes a reduction in stress-reduced adrenal activity, and is tied to a reduction in stress-induced adrenal activity. Now, some studies say that carnitine is tied to weight loss, and they recommend it for that. The authors of this book could not find any correlation between that. This is only hypothesis. So the concern of, okay, Colleen, you're telling me to gain weight, and you're telling me to take this weight loss supplement, it's just not there. Flaxseed is another one that you could take, and this is really readily available. I would say this is probably the easiest one to incorporate into your diet because I can literally buy it at Aldi. That's where I shop. So flaxseed contains fiber, lignin alpha-linoleic acid, mouthful I know, and a phytoestrogen precursor. These all contribute to its overall health benefits. And some of those health benefits are that you can have fewer anovulatory cycles, and basically that means cycles that you don't ovulate, longer luteal phases, decreased stress hormones and perception of stress, and a number of other general health benefits like improved lipid profiles, reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, decreased A1C in type 2 diabetics, and potentially cancer prevention. Now for this, again, it's so easy to incorporate because you can really consume the whole flaxseed or ground flaxseed. I have some in my pantry right now because I love the crunch that it adds. And one study points to taking about 10 grams a day, and this is roughly 1 to 2 tablespoons. So you can throw that on toast, peanut butter and banana toast, yum. You can throw it on top of your smoothies, in your smoothies, on yogurt, on oatmeal. I mean, just throw it on anything. Okay, the third supplement that I want to talk about is ashwagandha. So this can help reduce perceived stress and biomarkers of stress. So this might help in recovering periods and having regular periods in those who are stressed. Now again, this is not going to cover up if you live a stressful life. You gotta take control of that too. Now again, I'd highly recommend talking to your doctor first because with especially ashwagandha, there can be some people who it may not be the best for. For instance, if you're allergic to certain herbs, you might not want to take it, and also if you're taking hypothyroid. So again, I'll link to the research below. So then the goal of after you really implement this healthy menstrual cycle diet and you get your period back, yay, they say that you can switch to a more intuitive eating style. So yes, it is when you're kind of increasing your intake, you have to do that intentionally. We might not feel that hungry, especially if our hunger cues are suppressed, but then you can switch to a more intuitive eating kind of phase. Now, I do not recommend that you necessarily count calories. I have a whole video on why I do not count calories and kind of my experience with it. I can link to it there for you, but yeah, I don't recommend it. We know when we're being restrictive and when we're adding more food into our day. I would say let that be your guide. Be honest with yourself. And they say to start this kind of coming off of this and becoming more intuitive, adding more exercise in after you've had 3 consecutive healthy menstrual cycles. And that's really the rundown of especially this book. This one is heavy in how to get your period back. And like I said, in the next video, we're gonna go into more depth of, okay, what are the 3 phases of an actual menstrual cycle and what are some of the things that you can eat on your period to actually help it once you get it back and you have that healthier menstrual cycle. So be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you're excited for that and hit subscribe to be sure that you don't miss out on it. And I will see you back next week with another video at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm also going to link to these 2 in the description because I think they are so good and I would recommend them. So get your hands on them if you are as interested in female health as I am. See you guys later.